Hey, hey, welcome back to the podcast. Today we are going to be talking about the holidays and healthy habits, how to stay healthy throughout the holidays. It is well into November at this point. Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and as we all know, Christmas is going to be hot on its heels. I can't believe, honestly, that we are at this point in the year. I feel like this entire year just flew by, but particularly the last few months. So, like from July-ish to now feels like it's been about 3 days long in some ways. In other ways, it feels like it's been much longer than that. But anyway, um, first things first though, I am teaching a live training for free for the first time in several months. The last live training that I did was back in the spring, I believe, in I think March, maybe April. But I'm very excited about this because we are really going to hone in on period pain and why it's not normal. So, the name of the training is called Uncovering the Truth, Why Your Period Pain Isn't Normal, and How Functional Testing Can Transform Your Hormonal Health. I am hosting this class on Wednesday, which is November the 12th, and I'm going to offer it at two different times because I know that not everyone can come during the day. So, I live in the Central Time Zone. There's going to be one class that is at 10:30 Central Time that morning, and then one that's at 7 p.m. that night. If you're like, I cannot make either one of those times work, it's okay. Just go to the show notes and still register so that you get the replay. It's going to be recorded and it's not going to be super long. I am going to keep this to 30 minutes, maybe less, because we don't need a bunch of fluffy stuff. We just need to get to the point of the training. What is it that's causing this period pain? What do we do about it? And it won't take me, an hour to do that. And then at the end, I am going to leave time for those of you that are live to ask questions. Now, if you register and you can't make it live, but you know you have a question, you could also submit that to me via email before the training and I will answer it live. So, like I said, the link to register for that will be in the show notes if you're on my email list, which you absolutely should be. If you're listening to the podcast and you love the podcast, get on the email list. I send out a newsletter every week that covers a topic totally different from what we've chatted about on the podcast. I share, other resources and opportunities to work with me. The email list is a great place to be. So that link is also always in the show notes for you to get on the list. So let's get into it. I know that people have a lot of mixed feelings sometimes coming up on the holidays, and it's kind of like we've already hit Halloween, but even I feel like Halloween is like the tipping point for the holidays, and it's kind of that, there's all this candy that we get exposed to at Halloween, and from that point on, I feel like everybody is kind of in like, well, screw it mode. Like, we're here at the holidays. Things are crazy. Things are so busy. I don't have time to work out. I don't have the time to cook. I don't have time to be healthy. I'm going to worry about that in January. My New Year's resolution is going to be to lose 10 pounds in January, and I'll worry about that then. And that type of mindset is really sabotaging you and your overall health. Because let's just get real about it. Even if we count Halloween, these holidays add up to be less than a week. Let's just count it out. We've got, if we count Halloween, Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. That's 6 days. And we're letting it basically derail us for 2+ months. And if we're honest with ourselves, and I am guilty of this myself in the past, and sometimes still, it's a journey that I'm on with you. But we use it as an excuse to let ourselves off the hook to not follow through on the habits that we know we need to be doing. And I wanted to give 5 of I'm going to call them tips for staying healthy during the holidays. But they're also kind of like, I don't want to call them a rule because a rule sounds a little harsh. Maybe we'll call them guidelines. five tips, five guidelines that I really try to embody and remind myself of during the holiday season. And I feel like once I adopted these and really started leaning into them, I got out of that trap of thinking like, screw it, forget about it. There's so many holiday things going on. I am just going to do whatever, eat whatever, not exercise, and I'll just pick all this healthy stuff back up in January. It helped me to get past that because number one, I did sit down and I had that kind of harsh conversation with myself. And I said, this is a handful of days over a 2.5 month period of time that you are like letting yourself off the hook all of these days for when really, if you look at it very granularly, it's just a handful of days that you actually have holiday related events that you kind of want to allow yourself to go off the rails for. Okay. And I think that's also totally fine. And I'm going to get there. That's actually in one of my tips, one of my guidelines. But I want to go in the order that I have here in my list. And the first one I've already covered. My tip is like sit down with your own personal calendar and your list of events that you have and get really honest with yourself about how many, we'll call them holiday dinners, and I don't care what time of day it happens, but we'll just say how many holiday dinners do you actually have in this time frame versus how many days of like normal life that you have to live, because it's eye-opening. It's a perspective change. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is to also think about breakfast and the other meals, even on the days that you do have holiday events or dinners happening. Because for a lot of us, it's going to be rare that you have an entire day of eating that's truly impacted by a holiday. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you know? It's typically going to be, we're going to be home for breakfast, but then we're going to grandma's for lunch or for dinner or whatever the case may be. But that really gives you the opportunity to at least control your breakfast or at least control, maybe you're going for breakfast because we do that sometimes. Christmas morning, big breakfast. It's a big deal here at my house and I love it and I wouldn't change it. But that means that for like the rest of that day, I have more control over, and I mean, I'm saying control. You always have control over what you eat because you always have a choice. Okay. But what I mean by that is I can plan more strategically to have a healthier meal or option at lunch and dinner versus the special holiday breakfast that we're having that day. So even on days when we're like going somewhere else. So we go to my mom's when we celebrate Thanksgiving and we have it around lunchtime and it's a huge meal. And I love it. It's like my favorite meal of the year. And I go all out. I do not limit myself. I do not say, okay, we got to have either, the mashed potatoes or the dressing because carbs. No, absolutely. It's not happening. I am enjoying that meal. My mama makes it from scratch, homemade every year. It's delicious and I'm going to have it and I ain't going to feel guilty about it either. And I encourage you to do the same. But I set myself up going into that day and kind of like recovering afterwards, for lack of a better word, with intention. So to set myself up that morning, I have breakfast and I prioritize high protein on that day. Years ago, I would not eat at all until we got to that lunch. And I'm sure that there's a bunch of you listening to this that are like, yeah, I totally do that. When I know I'm going to have a big meal like that, especially at lunchtime, I just skip breakfast altogether. And for most of us, that is not setting us up for the best like blood sugar control throughout the day because you're going to be going for an extended period of time before you hit lunch. Then you're going to have this massive meal at lunch that typically is going to contain some probably very yummy desserts. And you're going to have this spike to your blood sugar, and then you're going to crash for the afternoon. And then you're also probably at some point going to be very hungry again, and it's going to kick in cravings because you didn't have that food and fuel in the morning to set your day up, for success. So, especially when your holiday gatherings are going to take place at lunchtime or dinner time, remember to really focus and dial in your breakfast. You have control over that for the day. It might not be that you consume like the exact same amount or type of breakfast that you usually do, but it gives you the opportunity to say, okay, I am really gonna prioritize getting protein in this morning and maybe some fiber because I don't think I'm gonna get much fiber later. I'm gonna focus on those two things. And maybe that just looks like I'm only making a smoothie this morning or I'm only making a shake this morning, and that's totally fine. Then I want you to think, and I've touched on this once already a little bit, but think about your other meals that are going to be taking place on this day, because here's what happens to a lot of us. We are having these holiday gathering meals around lunchtime, and we find ourselves like, because we're not used to eating such a big and heavy lunch, we're not as hungry at dinner time that night. And I don't want you to just completely skip that meal. If you find yourself being like, gosh, I am still just like stuffed from lunch, I want you to at least have a snack that's high in some protein, got a little bit of fat in there, so that it can kind of help keep your blood sugar stable through the night. And then that way you're waking up the next day in a more normal state, as opposed to I've eat this massive lunch, all these carbs, all this sugar. I'm not hungry at dinner, so I'm going to skip it. And then I'm going to wake up starving the next morning, or maybe even in the middle of the night, because my blood sugar crashes out because I didn't eat any dinner. So just kind of tune in and pay attention to like, how hungry am I? And like, what is my body really telling me that I need? And go with that. Listen to it and go with that. The third thing is, don't restrict yourself. Don't make yourself miserable through the holidays because for the sake of trying to like follow someone else's rules that they've set for you. Going back to tip number 1, if you look at the number of holiday events that you have, it's a very small number compared to the number of days in this 2.5 month period. So on Thanksgiving Day, on Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, like I told you earlier, I love the Thanksgiving meal that my mom prepares. It's delicious, and I'm not going to restrict, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it, and you shouldn't either. If you have things, I mean, like my mom makes from scratch chicken and dumplings and from scratch dressing that is delicious. It's typically the only time of year that she makes that. And if I skipped it and didn't allow myself to have it, then it'd be like a whole nother year before I had the opportunity to have it again. She also makes a carrot cake from scratch for Thanksgiving every year, and it's delicious. But again, it's kind of one of those things that we typically only have once a year. So I'm not going to miss out on it, and you shouldn't either. And I wouldn't care to bet that the people that are telling you that you need to follow these rules and you need to restrict and whatever, how about they're not following their own rules on these holiday days? That's a tangent for another day. Okay, number 4. We got 2 more, and these are quick. Number 4 is to hydrate. Drink your water on those days. It will help flush out the inflammation that may be caused in your body by consuming these like foods and things that you maybe don't normally incorporate into your diet. You can kind of expect that like the next day you might wake up a little puffy and a little swollen, and you might have some water retention. And if you stay hydrated, especially like the day before, the day of, the day after, I mean, you should always be staying hydrated, but if you're really diligent with it in that few day window there, that is going to help flush out that inflammation and kind of that bloated feeling that sometimes you get after these big meals. And then number 5 is to not forget about movement. Movement is so good for your blood sugar control, which has a lot to do with your energy levels. And if you can create the opportunity to be active, especially on a holiday event day, then I encourage you to do it. Like, get up that morning and get a workout in. Go, if it's nice outside, like take a walk outside after your Thanksgiving lunch, whatever it might be. Just don't forget to do like your workouts if you can fit it in. And then in general, just more movement throughout the day, just by walking around, doing some stretching. Um, Maybe you make it a game. Like maybe you have a dance party with your kids or your nieces or nephews or all the cousins. It could be your friend, your adult friends, whoever it is. Like make it fun, but that way everybody's kind of up and moving. Maybe you play games. Maybe you just like get everybody involved in something. A lot of families play football in the backyard on Thanksgiving if the weather's nice. That's a great way to get some movement in. So, like I said, these are kind of my 5 tips for you, the 5 guidelines that I go by to get through the holiday season and not come at the end of it and be like, oh my gosh, like what just happened for the past 2.5 months? I've been totally off the rails and I need to whip it into shape. Using these guidelines, I can carry on and feel really normal all throughout the holiday season and also still enjoy it and not feel guilty at the end of it. And I think that's probably what we're all going for. Now, one last piece of advice, or just a reminder, really. If you remember, what you do today impacts your period 90 days from now, 90 to 100 days from now, because that your egg that you're going to drop and that cycle 90 to 100 days from now it's like being created and matured now. So if you don't want to have miserable periods in January, February, March, you would be very wise to kind of follow these habits and these guidelines and not let yourself fall victim to the screw it, I'm going to go off the rails, not worry about it mentality that so many people fall into this time of year. So, hope that's helpful. Please remember live training next week on Wednesday, November the 12th, uncovering the truth why your period pain isn't normal. I would love for you guys to all be there. I would love for you to attend live, but like I said in the beginning, if those 2 times don't work for you, still register so that you can catch the replay. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll talk to you next week.